Today is World Sickle Cell Day. The theme this year is Voices of Resilience, Awareness, Change, Saving Lives. Nigeria carries the heaviest burden of sickle cell disease of any country on earth. Approximately 150,000 babies are born with the condition every year. Across Africa, the disease affects millions, yet research funding, treatment, access and public awareness remain critically inadequate. Two major sickle cell treatments were withdrawn from global markets in 2024, leaving patients with fewer options than ever before. Thank you so much for joining me on Channel's Business Global on what is a pretty historic day for World Sickle Cell Day. Your Excellency, let me start with you. You're a diplomat, a humanitarian, and now the keynote speaker at this event. Nigeria has the highest burden of sickle cell disease in the world. Approximately 150,000 babies are born with the condition every year. As chairperson of the Nigerian Governors Spouses Forum, what are you doing to put sickle cell on the national policy agenda?
Well, thank you very much for that question. We know that Sickle Cell Day is on the 19th of June every year. And then we also celebrate Sickle Cell Awareness Month in September. So we've been doing a lot in government. I want to assure you that the government is facing up to this responsibility. We First Ladies have been working really hard on this matter. We've made sure that we have, testing, genotype testing across the states. We've made sure that we do counseling because you see, we have to take it further than just the medical interventions. For us as First Ladies, we're the soft power. So what we do is make sure that we have government, civil society, the religious leaders, the traditional leaders, and all of these people, plus ourselves, making sure that we're fighting this cause. As you said, we have a high burden of sickle cell. So government is trying to make sure that there's newborn testing, there's infant testing, there's counseling when people are getting married. As you know, they're supposed to test. Unfortunately, we still have low awareness, and we're trying very hard to bridge this gap. And this is why I'm here. This is why I'm talking to you today, to create awareness even more so that it complements what government is doing in making sure that we get to the root of this and we stem the tide. Nigeria not just only has the highest burden of sickle cell, we also have the highest burden of healthy carriers. So, so it becomes difficult when people are getting married to tell them, don't proceed because, now feelings are involved and things. But when we continue to counsel, make sure we test, because we know that when you test babies, you have a higher chance of making sure that they live a healthy life. When they get tested later in life, then it becomes a problem. So I assure you, government is really on top of this and making sure that we get all these people tested.
Thank you. Let me bring in Lady Anne Welsh. Lady Anne, I'll just hand over the mic to you here. You were born with sickle cell disease. You left investment banking, pretty lucrative, to find painless universal, and this is because of your lived experience of pain. Most people would have stayed in their career. What made you walk away? And talk to us about what you've built and how it's helping with advocacy.
As you said, yes, I was born with sickle cell, and I still live with sickle cell disease because I'm unable to do the stem cell transplant. Because of my blood condition, I have severe sickle cell anemia where I can't do blood transplant and transfusion. So I was in investment banking, and that has always been my dream. My father was an accountant, and he always wanted us to do well in school. And investment banking was something my husband said, I think this is more your personality. It was so, it paid very, very well. I was really shocked when I started my job and how much I was getting paid. I thought to myself, wow,
you hit the jackpot.
a young analyst like myself getting paid this much,
yes,
and just leaving university. But at the same time, in all that glamour that I was presenting, people didn't see behind the scene of what hard work that was being put into it. Behind the scene, I remember at work one time, a number of times, the ambulance came to pick me up from work because I got sick, and the long hours It was so glamorous on the outside, but inside I was burning out, and my sickle cell could not take that anymore. And I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to tell my bosses, because they would say Friday you leave work, and you leave work in a perfect condition. Monday you're calling saying you're in A&E, and you repeatedly this conversation. And then my bosses were saying to themselves, this can't be right. Why are you doing this? Are you hiding something? Are you? And we know we have the culture in the UK where people go clubbing Friday, Saturday,
and
they thought I had
in the right industry,
and they thought that was what I was doing. But
Yes,
in reality, it was just my body was burnt out, and I didn't know it until Friday hit. When I get home, and I tried to relax, and I realized, oh gosh, sickle cell really kicks in, and I'll be in hospital for a week, and I miss out. So that was when the real aha moment kicked in. I needed to build purpose. I needed to do something that was different from what my pain was going. Do something that people could actually see my pain and understand that it doesn't matter how glamorous your life is. When you're suffering, you need to let the world know and work together to see how we could all conquer and solve that problem. So yes, that's where the Painless Universal came from.
Babatunde, let me bring you in. I know Her Excellency invited you to this discussion. You founded the Richard Coker Foundation in 2004 in memory of your cousin Richard, who died at 32 from complications of sickle cell and leukemia. 22 years on, what has changed and what has not changed enough?
I think, as you said, we founded the Richard Coker Foundation 22 years ago, and with my auntie, Miss Julie Coker, we found that at the time there was a lot of mysticism with sickle cell, a lack of knowledge, especially here in Europe. Globally, there was stigma. And I think, especially coming from the American side, that the cobwebs of that has been blown apart. So people understand they need to have, as Her Excellency said, a genotype test. They need to be aware that people, as Lady Anne said, have sickle cells, so they need help. And dialogue and mental health is better, and also the medical practitioners are more aware of sickle cell now.
Excellent. Let me bring in Your Excellency back. Let's draw on some of your experience from working in Kwara State, particularly on malaria, which is also an awful disease. Now, you've been a malaria ambassador for Kwara State, and you've led healthcare campaigns that reduce malaria prevalence in children under 5. What lessons from that public service project can you bring into tackling sickle cell once and for all?
Well, thank you. So, the malaria issue, as you know, now we're on the cusp of really getting rid of malaria, eradicating malaria. It's very exciting. And in Kwara State, we did a lot. We made sure we brought the chemo-malaria testing. We gave nets, over 2 million nets were distributed, and so many other interventions of government. We brought under 5 malaria onto under 6%, and even for adults it's under the national average. So we're very happy with what we're doing with malaria, and it was really important to use those lessons to translate to what we're doing on sickle cell. So sickle cell, like I said, we have to test when it comes to babies being born. We have to make sure that mothers are counseled. We have to make sure that they bring the children for testing. And, things like stem cell, things like blood transfusions, we have to make sure people understand that they have to give blood. We have to make sure that people understand that they have to give support. And when a child is in crisis, they don't expose that child to so many different things that could exacerbate the disease. We made sure for malaria, we cleaned gutters, we cleaned the environment, we told people not to be around stagnant water, we told people to use common sense things like wearing long sleeve dresses in the evening so that they're not bitten by mosquitoes. We made sure all of that. So those are the same education. So those are the same things we're deploying with sickle cell. And we, like I said, we employ religious and traditional rulers because they have the community at their fingertips. So they talk to them. Now before you get married, you have the counseling, and some people are only just discovering that they've got sickle cell. They thought it was something else, they're just falling ill. When they're about to get married, how do you tell two people about to tie the knot not to go ahead? It becomes difficult. That's why we have to make sure we get them when they're very young. And then, prevention. If you know your genotype, we go into schools, into the universities, and all of that to also make sure that we sensitize them and make them aware of what they're doing. So if you get to them at that age, they make more sensible choices. So prevention, as they say, is always better than cure. So we have to prevent, we have to treat, we have to counsel, we have to make sure that we get ready the next generation to combat sickle cell in our society.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Lady Anne, you were chairperson of the Sickle Cell Society UK. During your tenure, sickle cell was included in the UK nursing programme, and just behind us in the all-party parliamentary group it was formed. How did it happen, and why did it take so long?
Sickle cell is an invisible illness. So, you look at me, you never think I have sickle cell. So, and also the majority of people with sickle cell are from the ethnic minority in the UK, the black community. And so people see it as this silent thing. You're not suffering, nothing is wrong with you. So when I joined, I went to the AGM at the Sickle Cell Society AGM, they invited me. And I saw what was going on. I saw the beautiful work they were doing, and I thought to myself, someone living with sickle cell, my voice needs to be heard, because I needed to make a change. There was something that was missed, which was the nursing part. There was no one talking about it. The treatment with nurses were giving the patients. I felt very uncomfortable with the whole thing, and the lack of awareness when you go to a hospital, and people will still ask you the same question, and you've been there 10 times and they were still asking you the same question. So I felt very, very uncomfortable with that. And as soon as I got in, I said to them, I want to help you guys. I want to lead this organization to move into the parliament and see how we could. The community didn't understand sickle cell, but the other world did not understand what sickle cell was. So I wanted to go into a place and say go to the policy makers, change makers, the real decision makers, say to them, this needed to change. So this is why I took that initiative.
What changes were made? Tangible changes. Give us 2 or 3 that you can say yes. Your involvement has led to this happening in the UK.
Honestly, the main thing I would say that really transpired was including the nursing curriculum in university, because that was not students who go through university and they do their nursing. They miss out that part. What is sickle cell? What really needed to be done for people with sickle cell? Another thing was prescription. That one we didn't really quite close out on, because the numbers are not quite great. But we're still working on free prescription. Other people are getting prescription drugs, but we're still not getting that. And people don't understand that we do need these drugs. We take them daily, and without these drugs, we can't get better. Another thing was the parking right, disability badges. Yeah, people with sickle cell, people see us and say, oh, you don't need the disability badge because you could walk 100 yards. Yes, when I'm well, I could walk 100 yards. But when I'm not well, I can't do any of those stuff. These were issues that were not addressed. Why were people with sickle cell still not having disabled badge wherever people were getting it? And with those badges, that makes your life so much. And they talk about the cost burden. When you're in hospital, it costs so much. If you take away that cost of giving them that little help they might need, that makes a huge difference. So those are the kind of things that I was really, really passionate about in pushing it within this.
Yes, thank you, Lady Anne. I'm sure our viewers will be saying, thank you for that badge. Mr. Babatunde, what would Richard think of where the fight against sickle cell stands today, and what do you want his legacy to mean for the next generation of Nigerians born?
I think what we're doing for Richard's legacy is very important, that we're in England, UK. Nigeria, as the First Lady has said, it has the highest population of people with sickle cell, but it's across the world. It's 6 to 9 million people who suffer with it. And it's something that we feel that the legacy starts in England but goes across the world. We have GANSID, which is inherited blood disease disorder community in Africa. We have it in the Middle East. We have it in South America. So what we're doing from England is pulling in all these different silos and bringing them together. And I think that's what the Sickle Cell Alliance is about. And thanks to the First Lady and Lady Anne, we've been able to corral and cajole and bring in not just people in policy making or philanthropists, but also medical practitioners, Imperial College Trust, University College Hospital, King's College Hospital, even with Nigeria, the Center of Excellence in Abuja. We have people and representatives coming in. So my legacy for Richard, hopefully, will be that he's a connector. He was always a connector. He was a film producer, and he was always a communicator. So with my auntie, Miss Julie Coker, we're now bringing these silos together, and collaboration is the only way forward.
Excellent, thank you so much. Lastly, Your Excellency, why sickle cell? You're incredibly busy lady. Our viewers will know you from so many events, doing so many wonderful things. What was it about sickle cell that you said, no, I have to be involved and I have to be in London to advocate at this event?
Yeah. So, I've been an advocate for sickle cell for over 3 decades,
Why?
I had a friend whose son had sickle cell, and as a young boy, they were able to do the stem cell transplant, and he was cured. And then I saw so many people also with sickle cell, and I'd sort of helped over the years. But when I became First Lady, I decided this was going to be one of my core advocacies. And then I partnered with a lot of people. I partnered with the former mayor of Brent here, with Sickle Cell Society UK, with some doctors and nurses, both here and in Nigeria. And I came here and they gave me books on latest techniques, latest, new treatments and all of that. And, it just made my work a lot easier. In Kwara, I put like 200 sickle cell, we call them warriors, sickle cell warriors, on the Kwara State Health Insurance scheme every year. So each year I put 200 more, I put 100 more as we find them.
Yes.
And the state is very, very good at taking care of them. This week I'm here in London with the Richard Coker Foundation, with Lady Anne Welsh and the Sickle Cell Society, and Chief Julie Coker. As everybody knows her, she's a national treasure. So we're going to do something in the memory of Richard Coker. But in Nigeria as well, I'm working with my office, my NGO, the Ajike People Support Center, Pearl Sickle Cell. We're doing a walk, as we do every year. And then we're also putting a pharmacy together, which will serve over 1,000 people on the day. So people can walk in and pick up whatever medication they want. I funded that. And, it just became something that I was passionate about, because I knew Nigeria had the highest burden, but people didn't seem to know.
Yes.
People don't seem to be aware. So I thought, it's really important to get into this. We know about the medication, and as I said, there's a medication called the hydroxyurea, which is very popular, which we're trying to make sure that Nigerians get. We know that there were some studies and some medications were withdrawn in 2024 and 2025. That put a setback on the world sickle cell community. But in Nigeria, we were not really reaching that anyway. Most people could not afford it. So while we're waiting for more innovation, it's important to continue to come here, see latest work, see what is going on, and take it back to Nigeria. And we'll continue to work with all the nurses here, with the very important work that my partners are doing here, and taking back best practices and a lot of things back to Nigeria. This is how we work on numbers. This is how we get things down.
That's right.
It's by collaboration.
That's right.
So we're going to continue to work and make sure we do this.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. Lady Anne, as you're living with sickle cell, I think it's only right we give you the final word. And I don't want it to be negative, because you are fabulous. You're not a negative person. I want you to shed some light, or just tell the viewers something about living with sickle cell that they may not know. And it doesn't necessarily have to be negative.
This time last year, I was in hospital, and so dealing with sickle cell challenge, and Her Excellency was actually one of the ladies who put me through it, because I was actually so down and didn't think, because blood was rejected. Every kind of trauma that could happen to someone was one. It was my point where I thought, okay, this is it. This is time to, you always think that, because you get all the synopsis from the doctors. But
Here you are.
Here we are. And we did, and we still managed to do a campaign. Yes,
and we did a campaign
yes.
last year.
She insisted, and Baba here has also been my support. He's been my support body, and he's always championed me and saying, "You just have to keep going." The only final message I would have to people is that you must find that support body. It is about people, and don't take things too personal. I think with sickle cell, there's so much. Negative, so much stigma, so much hate, so much not believing. Especially a lot of patients go to hospital and they say to them, "Sure, what's the pain rank 1 to 10?" We say we're 10, and they say you don't look like a 10, you look like you're only 3, while you really are in 10. Or because sometimes we have repeated crisis, and that repeated crisis causes doctors to kind of question, why are you here every week? Are you addicted to the painkillers or the drugs? I want people to know that sickle cell is real, the pain is real. And when someone comes to you with a sickle cell crisis, please be passionate. Please look at them with compassion, be empathetic to them. And I want sickle cell warriors, especially, this message is for them, is that to keep believing in yourself and keep speaking up. Never give up. I've spoken to so many sickle cell warriors who are afraid to go to hospital, who are afraid to go get treatment, who are afraid to tell people. I sometimes am afraid to tell people about my illness because I think people will look down on me. But with people like support bodies here, I always go out and I tell people, even when I'm not feeling well, I'll just tell them, "So sorry, I know I was meant to be there 5 minutes ago. I can't make it. So feel free and speak."
Wow.
Yeah.